My name is Harry and I live in a rural area of England. I am now 18, but this happened when I was 15 years old. I have a group of friends I've had for many years, dating back to preschool. I'll call them Luca and Tommy for privacy. Tommy and I live in a small village where we went to school and have spent our whole lives. It's a quiet village with mostly older people, so everyone our age naturally became close friends. Luca lived on a farm not far from the village and went to the same primary school. Growing up, we all believed in the paranormal, but I've always been secretly religious, even though my actions sometimes contradicted that. We stayed close after school and would regularly meet up to drink and mess around. One day, we decided to meet at Luca's farm. We rarely went there and thought we could play music loud and drink without worrying. Luca offered us a place to sleep in the nearby woods. He had a small camping spot set up. Being the immature teenagers we were, we agreed. Everything was fine at first. We drank, ate, and had a good time. It's worth mentioning the tent at the campsite only really fit 2 people, and even then, it was a squeeze. Luckily, there was a hammock, and I offered to sleep in it. Around 3 a.m., I heard a strange humming coming from deep in the forest. I woke the other 2 up and asked frantically if they heard it. They heard it clearly. It sounded like a woman, and the only woman in the area would have been Luca's mom, who wouldn't come to the forest at night. That creeped us out, and I offered to check what was making the sound. What a stupid mistake. Tommy refused and stayed behind, while Luca and I grabbed our phone flashlights and went searching. We walked for about 5 minutes and then saw something we couldn't explain. In the distance stood a woman in a white, muddy dress, her hair black and long, and she seemed to glow. She was huge, easily 7 feet tall. As soon as she saw us, she turned and walked away, still humming. Horrified but curious, we followed. She moved through bushes to our right, and we pushed after her. A small crossing bridge led us to a massive open field full of the most beautiful poppy flowers. If you don't know, the poppy is hugely symbolic where I'm from. It's how we remember the soldiers who fought in World War I. People wear poppies to commemorate them. We scanned the field. She was gone. The humming stopped, and a strange feeling settled over us that I can't properly describe. We followed a long path through the poppies, expecting to find her at the end. Instead, we found something incomprehensible: a tombstone and a white, muddy dress lying in front of it. The tombstone read, "In loving memory of Diana, taken from this world too young. May her soul rest in peace, 1917. Understandably, we were horrified. We ran back to the camp and told Tommy everything. He didn't believe a word. The next morning, we told Luca's parents what we'd seen. A pale expression crossed his father's face. He said, "A woman was killed by her husband on this farm many years ago. He went off to war and came back with shrapnel embedded in his face. The doctors couldn't remove it. He went insane and one day snapped. He killed his wife in a poppy field, and her body was never found." My name is AK. I'm 20 years old now. I was 9 when this incident happened. It happened to me and my grandmother. My grandmother was a professor at a prestigious university. My mother was a businesswoman, and my father worked for a private company. On the day of the incident, my mother was on a 3-day business trip abroad, and my father worked late into the night. My grandmother and I were alone in our 5-story apartment complex. One evening, my grandmother came home from college holding a large hilsa fish in her hand. It was my favorite fish, so I was excited, but she looked nervous. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me to close the windows and the balcony door because it was evening. About an hour later, I smelled the fish frying in our kitchen. I ran over happily, and my grandmother smiled at me. As we talked, she noticed a few pieces of fish missing from the plate beside her. She knew I hadn't taken any because I was standing right next to her. She said nothing, but the strange thing continued. Each time she glanced at the plate, more fish would disappear. She waited to see what would happen, and what happened next still makes me cry with horror. A truly black hand, a disgusting hand with dark hair, came through the kitchen window and took a piece of fish. My grandmother immediately began praying and yelled for me to leave, but I was frozen with fear. Tears ran down my face. Living on the 5th floor, I knew that hand could not be human. I began having trouble breathing, like something was suffocating me. My grandmother screamed at the black entity and asked it what it wanted. The black hand pointed at the fish. My grandmother decided to give it a piece, but she also knew that if she gave it what it wanted, it might never let go. So she moved closer to the hand, holding the fish, and instead of handing it over, burned the entity's hand with a pair of cooking tongs. A loud, inhuman scream rang out, and the hand flew back out the window. My grandmother recited prayers and shut the window. After that, I fainted. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. My grandmother, my mother, my father, and a nurse stood around my bed. My family was crying. My mother had returned home from abroad quickly. She said that as soon as I fainted, my fever spiked. I was shaking and foaming at the mouth. My grandmother had called the neighbors and taken me to the hospital. The doctors struggled to bring my fever down. I was unconscious for 3 days. Thankfully, I recovered, but that incident is still unforgettable. Hello, I'm a 16-year-old girl living in a small village in Norway. About 2 years ago, my mom, my dog, and I moved into an old house. The townspeople called it a haunted house, but we didn't care. My mom didn't have much money, the house was cheap, and most importantly, we didn't believe in the supernatural. One morning, my mom left for work, leaving me alone with my dog while I got ready for school. I'm a pretty lazy kid and not much of a morning person, so instead of rushing, I usually sat in the bathroom with my dog and watched YouTube. I was sitting on the floor, cuddling her, when suddenly the room felt ice cold. That was strange, because the bathroom was normally the warmest room in the house, thanks to the underfloor heating. A chill crawled across my skin as I hugged my dog tighter, and then I felt it. The overwhelming urge to look into the hallway, like someone unseen was watching me. My dog felt it too. Her ears perked, and she began to growl. I slowly lifted my eyes, and that's when I saw it. A 6-foot-tall, white, shadowy figure floated toward me. I froze. My arms locked around my dog. Her growls turned into whimpers, and hot tears stung my eyes. The figure drifted closer and closer until it stopped right in front of the bathroom door. It lowered its head as if staring straight at me, then slowly turned and floated directly through the locked laundry room door. I sat there trembling, unable to move. It felt like hours before I finally gathered the courage to get up. I clipped on my dog's leash and bolted out the front door, running straight to my grandmother's house down the road. When I told her what I'd seen, she just gave me a confused look and laughed. That night, I tried to brush it off. I crawled into bed, ready for sleep, when I heard it, a knock at my window. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor. Unless someone had climbed the wall, there was no way anyone could be knocking. I hesitated, then peeked out the window. Nothing. The dark stared back at me. Terrified, I ran to my mom's room. She was asleep, but I shook her awake and begged to sleep beside her. She didn't ask questions, she just let me. But that was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, strange things kept happening. Paintings slipped from the walls, footsteps echoed in empty rooms. And one night, while my mother and I were sitting in the living room, a knife lifted off the kitchen counter and dropped onto the floor. That was it. My mom had enough. We packed up and moved into my grandmother's house. She welcomed us without hesitation, and we stayed for 6 months until we found a new home. Now, we've been here for 7 months. Nothing strange has happened since. At least, not yet. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm writing this email because something really strange happened to me. I live in India, and this happened about 2 years ago when I was 16. I live with my parents and 2 older brothers. In our neighborhood, there are only about 10 houses built in the same style, 2-story houses. My parents and I sleep on the first floor, and my brothers sleep on the second. So it was just like any other morning. I woke up and my mom and older brother, Ali, were talking in another room. They were loud, but I didn't really pay attention. I was brushing my teeth and getting ready for school when my brother came into my room and jokingly said,
"Want to see a ghost? Come here."
I was so confused and a little creeped out. He walked to my parents' room and pointed to the window.
"Look."
There was a huge road in front of our house, and I saw a man standing in the middle of it, wearing a shawl. It was winter, and the fog was thick outside, making it hard to see. He was looking to the left, where there were bushes and dense trees. It looked like a small forest. My mom was terrified, having never seen him in our neighborhood, but I thought he was waiting for someone. We watched him for about 10 minutes, and what really gave me the creeps was that he just kept staring at the bushes without moving a muscle. Then we shrugged and started getting ready for the day. My older brother Assad used to always take me to college on his scooter, and as we were leaving, I saw the man standing in the middle of the road, still facing the bushes. My brother passed him, and I watched him closely for a few seconds. He was wearing white pajamas and a light brown kurta. His shawl was off-white and covered him from head to knee. I could only see his eyes, and when my eyes met his, a shiver ran through my body. I could only see his eyes, but I could tell he was smiling, and his smile seemed to be a wide grin. I got goosebumps. During the ride to college, I kept wondering, is he smiling at me, or is he smiling at something in the bushes? Once I got there, I quickly forgot about it and focused on my day. I left the university around 3 p.m. and rode home on a 3-wheeler, a vehicle similar to a taxi. I was on my phone the entire ride, and as I neared home, I thought of the man. I looked outside and saw the same man still standing there in the same position. The thought of him standing there for 8 hours in the winter without moving a muscle was mind-boggling. I was horrified. The driver was driving in the opposite direction, so I couldn't see his face, only his back. I wondered if he was still smiling. I went home, ate, and slept. I woke up around 10 p.m., the time my dad usually gets home from work. My mom and I were talking about the day, and I had completely forgotten about the man. Then my dad arrived and told my mom he had been standing there since morning. I ran to the window, and sure enough, he was there, staring at the bushes, not moving a muscle. Before coming home, my dad went to the man and asked him why he'd been standing there all day, but he didn't say anything. We were all so confused as to why he'd been standing there all day, especially in the winter. After dinner, before bed, my dad told us to lock all the doors and windows. He didn't usually say that, so I figured it was about the man. I locked everything and double-checked to see if he was still there, and to my surprise, he was. We went to bed, and the next morning, I was eating breakfast and watching TV when I suddenly remembered the man. I looked out the window, and he was gone. He hasn't been seen since. We were all horrified by it, but after a few days, we all collectively forgot about it. I asked countless questions like, why was he standing there? Why was he staring at the bushes? Was there something in the bushes? But we never got any answers, and the man standing outside still remains a mystery. It was a normal, cool evening. My mom and I were heading to Kohl's to buy some new clothes for me since I had outgrown my old ones. We walked in, and at first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. At one point, I grew bored of looking at clothes, so I told my mom I was going to explore the store on my own. She nodded and told me to stay close. As I wandered off, I noticed a woman. She was dressed in all black with long black hair, and she was staring right at me. Her eyes were wide open, black eyeliner streaked down her face. Her eyes were so wide it looked unnatural. A wave of fear hit me. I frantically looked around for my mom. When I couldn't find her, panic started to set in. Then I turned back. The woman was even closer, smiling, that same unsettling, creepy smile. I was so scared I couldn't even think straight. I didn't have a phone, so there was no way to call my mom for help. Thinking quickly, I darted into the clothing racks, trying to hide. Then a hand grabbed my shoulder. I stifled a scream and spun around. It was my mom. Relief washed over me, even as she scolded me for running off, but her words barely registered. My mind was locked on the woman. The woman could still be out there, watching, waiting. Then, my mom's tone shifted. Her face grew more serious. She asked if I had seen a woman with long black hair and wide eyes. My heart skipped a beat. She had just described the exact woman I'd seen. I told her yes, that I had seen her and that I was terrified. My mom nodded. She quickly paid for our things and we left. Nothing happened after that, but the image of her never left me. Her eyes, her wide smile, even now, it still gives me chills. My name is Zama, and I'm from South Africa. In August of 2024, something terrifying happened to us. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a block of flats with my 9-year-old daughter Coco. One Sunday at 2:30 a.m., we were fast asleep with all the lights off, as we usually are. Then I suddenly woke up to the sensation of someone reaching for my tablet right beside me. At first, I thought it was my daughter Coco. She often grabs the tablet when she can't sleep. But then I realized something was very wrong. There was an unknown man in our apartment. I'm a light sleeper, especially where my daughter is concerned. So I screamed as loud as I could and grabbed him. I think my sudden reaction made him freeze for a moment. He already had my iPhone in his hand, the one Coco had been using earlier that evening. We started fighting, and as we struggled, we both fell on top of my daughter, who was still asleep. I was terrified, thinking if he overpowered me, he'd go for her next. I pushed him out of my room and into the living room. I was just trying to get him out. In a panic, I grabbed pots and pans and threw them at him, anything I could find. Finally, he backed away, opened the door, and ran out. I was in shock, thinking the door must have been unlocked, but later discovered he had crept in through the bathroom window. We live on the 2nd floor, and I never thought to lock that window. I assumed it was safe. He was skinny enough to step on the balcony rails and squeeze through the burglar guards. Once inside, he unlocked the front door so he could escape quickly if he needed to. Despite my screams, none of my neighbors came to help. They called later to say they'd heard something, but hadn't come down. I was devastated, but at least I managed to cancel my bank cards on Apple Pay before any payments went through. We don't live in that apartment anymore. We're okay, but we're scared of living alone for now. A few days later, we found out there was a group of thieves targeting homes in our area. I was the only person who woke up during the break-in. Others lost much more valuable items. 2 days after our incident, one of the thieves was found dead in the morning. I don't know whether it was the same man who entered our apartment, and honestly, I don't much care. They chose that life. Hi, my name's Nick, and this happened about 4 years ago. Back in 2021, I was 14 at the time. It was early morning, and I was walking to the bus stop to head to school. It was winter, rainy and cold, which is rare where I live in Australia. From the moment I stepped outside, I had this eerie feeling. I didn't feel safe the way I usually did walking down that road. Something just felt off. I finally made it to the bus stop. It was empty. That was strange because there were usually a few other people waiting there too. Even weirder, it was a busy main road, but barely any cars were driving by. The whole thing gave me the creeps. My bus was late, which was annoying because I was standing there in the cold, shivering. A few minutes passed before I noticed something. This old, beat-up, white minibus pulled up about 10 meters from me. All the windows were covered with curtains. Behind the wheel was an older man, maybe in his late 50s or 60s. He looked rough, scruffy gray beard, old clothes, blank expression. At first, I thought maybe he was lost or waiting for someone, but when I looked at him, he was staring right at me. My heart dropped. I froze. Then I saw it. A faint smile appeared on his face before disappearing back into that same blank stare. I looked down at my phone, pretending to check when my bus was coming, but my hands were shaking. It was supposed to be here 5 minutes ago. When I looked up again, he was still staring. There was no one else on the bus, just him, and something about him didn't seem like a driver at all. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. I wanted to cry. Then, slowly, the bus started rolling forward, closer to me. And that's when I heard it, the click of his door unlocking. I was ready to run. My heart was pounding out of my chest. And then I saw my school bus coming down the road. I sprinted forward, waving it down. As I climbed on, I glanced back and saw the man closing his door before driving off in the other direction. That was the last time I ever went to that bus stop. Even now, whenever I pass it, I still look for that same old white minibus, but I've never seen it again. And every time I think about it, I wonder what would have happened if my bus hadn't shown up when it did. It was a hot summer day in Northern Virginia, and because of COVID, our parents didn't let us see each other very often. But we begged, and eventually they gave in. We met in Sanvi's backyard, along with our friend at the time, Mia. All three of us brought our favorite stuffed animals and toys. I brought my teddy bear, and being kids with wild imaginations, we decided to take care of it like it was real. We made it a little bed, we fed it food, and spent hours just pretending and playing. After about an hour, we decided our teddy bear was hungry again, so we started looking for plants to feed it. We searched both Mia and Sanvi's backyards, but there weren't many plants, so we wandered around the neighborhood looking for berries, flowers, and sticks, anything we could find.
Hey guys,
Nitya shouted.
we should go near my house. It has a lot of plants and berries.
Her house was a few houses down from Sanvi's, so we agreed and ran there, laughing and excited. We started plucking berries from the trees near her house, but then Nitya spotted a man in the distance, standing near Sanvi's backyard. She didn't say anything at first. We kept picking berries until Sanvi pointed and whispered that a strange man was now walking toward us. At first, we thought he was someone who mowed lawns or worked for a neighbor. He started talking to us, asking if our parents were home. That's when we started to feel really uncomfortable. We slowly began walking away, but he kept coming closer. Now all three of us were scared. We turned and started running back toward Nitya's house. Sanvi looked behind us and saw the man following, his pace getting faster. He called out to us, saying he had something to give us, that he needed us to take it to our parents. We didn't believe him. We just kept moving. But Maya, being the youngest, slowed down, and then she stopped. The man reached out, almost grabbing her arm, but Nitya and Sanvi tugged her away just in time. We sprinted to Nitya's house, our hearts racing. Nitya was the last to go inside, and as she turned to close and lock the door, the man was gone. He had disappeared. We didn't tell her parents about it. We didn't want to worry anyone. After all, maybe he just wanted to talk to our parents. About a half an hour later, we went back outside, assuming it was safe. We returned to Mia's backyard and started playing again with the teddy bear. But then, Mia's dad came rushing down the stairs, his face pale, his voice frantic.
Did you guys see a man lurking in our backyard?
He was out of breath, holding his phone, and that's when he showed us a video. It was the same man. One of our neighbors had caught him trespassing, talking to their kids, and trying to lure them with candy. When the neighbor confronted him, he pretended not to speak English and said he was collecting trash, but we knew the truth. To this day, we still wonder what would have happened if we hadn't gone to pick those berries. Would we still be here to tell this story? Would he have done unimaginable things to us? I'm a 17-year-old female living in West Bengal, India. I have a female cousin from my mother's side. Let's call her Swathi. She's the same age as me, and if you asked in our family who's the prettiest, it would be Swathi. The story takes place last year, and it still haunts me. You know, nowadays kids are heavily addicted to cell phones, right? I won't say I'm not one of them, I am. But Swathi had an extreme and unhealthy obsession with hers. In fact, she was spoiled. You see, we come from an upper-class family. We don't live in riches. Plus, at the age of 17, maturity develops and we know when to stop whining and demanding like a brat. But Swathi didn't. She was a spoiled princess. She would constantly demand super expensive things, and if she didn't get them, she would threaten people with a knife, sometimes even her own parents and friends. You might be asking, how do I know this? Well, I was the closest to her out of all of the cousins, so she shared everything with me. And by everything, I mean everything, even the horrible things she'd done. The main incident happened in July. I visited her house, just me, not my parents since they weren't available. It was a normal, relaxing summer evening in the countryside. Warm breeze, crickets, you get the picture. We were in the living room, me, Swathi, her mother, and her grandma. Suddenly, Swathi sat up from the couch using her iPhone and looked at her mom.
Mom, can I get a new iPhone next month?
Her mother looked horrified. They had just bought her a new iPhone 2 months ago.
No, honey, you already have one, no? And it's too expensive. Your dad can't afford that much money for the new model.
I don't want to go into detail about the fight, but let's just say it got so bad that Swathi's grandma had to leave the room with me. After that, Swathi became cold and quiet. She didn't eat, she didn't talk, not with anyone, including me. A week later, I returned home. That's when I found out what happened after I left. Remember how she had stopped eating? Well, apparently she stole some potassium cyanide from her school chemistry lab. She mixed it with her lunch in such a way that it looked like her mother had poisoned her food. She collapsed at school and was taken directly to the hospital. There, she told the police a story that made it seem like her mother had purposefully starved her for days and then poisoned her. Her mother was arrested and sent to prison for a whole month. Our family was ashamed, but since no evidence was found, her mother was eventually released. And how do I know the truth? Swathi told me herself, with excitement in her voice. I still get goosebumps remembering it. She was crazy, but luck wasn't on her side. Her parents found out what she had done. Her mother was heartbroken. Her father was in pure rage. He yelled at her, calling her a disgrace to the family, cursing, and for the first time, he raised his hand against her. He slapped her hard again and again. By the end, her fair skin was blood red from his anger, and that's when the main disaster happened. 2 weeks later, there was sudden news of a huge car accident. The car's petrol tank was leaking, the tires sabotaged. The vehicle crashed into a tree and burst into flames. The victims? Swathi's parents. The moment I heard the news, I had a gut feeling. I prayed I was wrong, but I wasn't. Swathi admitted it to me later that night with a wide, ear-to-ear smile and a childish excitement in her eyes. She tampered with the car. She killed them. I felt sick. I wanted to cry, to vomit. I couldn't sleep that night or for the entire next month. All this just because her parents refused to give in and to buy her a new iPhone. No investigation was done. The police ruled it a simple road accident, but it was far from simple. Now, my cousin has moved to South Korea to live with her distant grandparents. I've cut off all contact with her. I may not like her anymore, but I once loved her as my own sister. I didn't want her to get in trouble, but after everything, I only hope she gets the medical help she needs in her new home. One day, I was on duty as a fitness coach for my 360 fitness company, which partners with a call center agency called TELUS International in Iloilo, Philippines. My shift started at 6 a.m. and ended at 3 p.m. I woke up early, made breakfast, prepped my lunch, took a bath, changed into my work clothes, and headed straight to a nearby jeepney stop. I rode a jeepney toward my workplace, located on the 15th floor of SM Strata. I got off in front of my SM City at exactly 5 a.m. and crossed the overpass from SM Mall to SM Strata. Once there, I took the elevator from the lobby up to the 15th floor. After arriving, I signed the attendance logbook at the security desk and used my access card to enter the workplace. When I got to the fitness gym, I noticed something strange. The smart TV was still on. I asked the security guard about it because the TV should never be left on overnight. I messaged our group chat asking the coach from the previous shift if he might have forgotten to turn it off. He replied almost instantly, saying he had definitely turned it off before leaving. Then the security guard came back, his face pale. He told me they had checked the CCTV footage and the TV had turned on by itself. I was speechless. The smart TV required someone to physically press a switch located behind it to turn it on. It made no sense. Still, I tried to shake it off and continue my morning routine. Before my shift officially started at 6 a.m., I decided to squeeze in my own workout. It was leg day. Smith machine barbell squats, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, and dumbbell calf raises. After my workout, I stretched, then headed to the shower room to freshen up. I was drenched in sweat. As the water ran over me, I suddenly heard a faint sound. Psst. I froze. I knew for a fact I was alone in the gym. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a pipe or the sound of water. But then I heard it again, louder this time. Psst. My heart started pounding, and then I heard it. A deep, demonic voice calling my name.
Christian.
I panicked. I rushed out of the shower, water still dripping from my hair, grabbed my clothes, and threw them on as fast as I could. My hands were shaking. When I sat down at my desk, trying to steady my breathing, I kept telling myself it was all in my head. Just stress, just exhaustion. But at 6 a.m. when clients started arriving, one of them, someone I was close to, noticed how pale I looked.
Are you okay, Coach?
He asked. I hesitated before answering.
No. Do you think there are spirits in this place?
He didn't even hesitate. He nodded.
Technically, yes. After a call center employee died of a heart attack here, people say her spirit still roams the building. The workplace was never blessed by a priest after she passed. People have reported strange things. Doors opening, equipment moving, hearing voices.
He leaned in closer.
I've experienced it too. One time I was lying down doing crunches when something grabbed my leg. But when I looked up, there was nothing there.
He stared at me with a serious expression.
Be careful, Coach.
I sat there in silence, chills crawling up my spine. That night replayed in my mind over and over again. If that spirit really is still here, will it come back for me? I rented an apartment when I was 24. It was cheap, but I liked it. My first time living alone, and I was excited. The building was 6 stories high, with more than 10 households, but strangely, it was always quiet. I rarely saw any of my neighbors, and when I did, they never looked at me. They just walked past me like I wasn't there. Something about it felt off. One day, I was heading out to the supermarket, walking down the hall, when I noticed one of the apartment doors was slightly open. Out of curiosity, I peeked inside. There was a large group of people sitting around a long table eating. It was dark inside, no lights, no sounds, just the faint clicking of dishes. Every window was covered by thick curtains, and the whole place looked like it was drenched in shadow. Before I could process what I was seeing, the door slammed shut right in my face. I jumped, but brushed it off, thinking maybe the wind caught it. I went to the store, bought what I needed, and then came back. When the elevator doors opened on my floor, I froze. There was a crowd of people standing right in front of me. Their faces were pale, their expressions blank, but their eyes, they were angry. They just stood there, staring. None of them moved, none of them spoke. The silence felt suffocating. Then one of them leaned in close and whispered, "Invite us." His voice was so quiet, it barely sounded human. I forced a nervous smile and tried to squeeze past them. As I did, a horrible stench hit me, something foul and rotten, and I nearly gagged. When I turned around, the elevator doors closed behind me, and they were gone. That uneasy feeling stuck with me all night. A few days later, I came home from work to see police cars parked out front. Officers were standing near an apartment door, the same one I had peeked into. One officer stopped me and explained what happened. The man who lived there hadn't paid rent for weeks. The manager tried knocking, but there was no answer, only a terrible smell coming from inside. When they broke the door open, they found a pile of shoes in the entryway, far too many for one person. Inside, there were clothes scattered everywhere, shirts, pants, coats, laid out as if people had vanished right out of them. In the middle of the room was that same long table, covered in food, rotten food, mold growing on the plates, but there wasn't a single person in sight. On the wall, written in large red letters, were the words, "Thank you for inviting us." The tenant was never found. I didn't know his name or his face, so I couldn't help the police. But every time I walk past that apartment door, I still wonder, who were those people I saw eating in the dark?